welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so excited for this edition of Pause. We're going to be chatting with a person who's very, very special to me, with my niece, Simone Wright. The whole purpose behind Pause is for us to explore just some personal narratives, really looking around things like resilience and growth. And again, just really tapping into people's ability to dig deep, and you can only do that by pausing.
Absolutely. I'm extremely excited to have Simone on today's episode for a few reasons. One, I feel like we're we're closer in age and that generation, so we have that just
Amy.
And also I think it's crucial, even for myself, to see women of our background to have a space where they can share their story and to share their history and to share. And this is coming out in February, so the timing is fantastic, Black History Month, where we can highlight voices like yourself and really give little Black girls as something to look up to and to aspire to be. So I am extremely, extremely excited to have this conversation, and I think our community can benefit from it in the sense that we can raise awareness to conversations that need to be had so that Black voices can feel safe in every room. So yes,
beautiful.
I'm super excited.
You know, everything that you said there, absolutely in agreement. And that reminds me, there's a question I wanted to ask you, Simone, about you and your place in this country called Canada. But before we do so, why don't you take a couple seconds or so and just let our community know a little bit about you? How did you come to this place? But who you are, what, hobbies, work, anything that you feel would help connect our community with you.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for this opportunity to share my story and, be in community with you, Ayamara, and with you, Auntie. So I'm Simone, born and raised in Winnipeg, Treaty Number 1, and I am the child of two immigrants hailing from Jamaica. I have two younger brothers, and did all of my education within Winnipeg and moved to Toronto about 20 years ago to pursue my dream of getting into the fashion industry, which I did for a little bit. And from there, really took the time to just reconnect with my roots and just seeing everything that's been happening in the world, injustices, especially within the Black community. It really sparked that sense of activism in me. And I think that's something that has really been integral, and it's been inspired from the people in my family, my mom, my aunt, my grandmother. So I do work within the corporate world in Toronto, but I also run my own grassroots organization, which I'll share a little bit with you in a bit, called Pardon the Roots.
Oh, I love that. And the fact that, you highlighted the parents and their roots coming back from Jamaica, and that born in the beautiful city of Winnipeg. That actually brings to mind, I wanted to know if you could share a little bit about your experience being a firstborn Canadian coming from those roots, the Jamaican roots,
Absolutely.
and how that kind of tie into your journey in terms of discovering your own African roots. Because you mentioned that about 20 years ago, landing in Toronto, fashion industry, and then really your roots. You want to tell us a little bit?
Yeah, thanks for asking this question, because this is something that I discussed with an acquaintance of mine a few years ago. So she's indigenous to Fiji. That's where her family is from, but she grew up in BC. And I believe she's like a mid 70s to late 70s baby. I'm an early 80s baby. And we were sharing our experience of being the firstborn generations here in Canada, and how it was challenging for us, I would say, especially for us born between the mid 70s and the mid 80s, because when you look at the immigration of people coming from the Caribbean, from Asia, a lot of them came during the 60s and the 70s and started to have their children in like the mid 70s and the mid 80s. So for us, I feel like we were that first generation who had to deal with maneuvering with two identities, the identities of our parents in our household with their culture, and then our identity, our Canadian identity outside of the household. And this is not anything on my parents, but I don't think my parents really understood what my brothers and I had to deal with maneuvering between two different identities. And it's the
Right.
same conversations that I've had with my friends as well in regards to, certain expectations in the household and outside of the household. I do feel that it was a challenge in regards to maneuvering between those two identities. What I am grateful for though is two things. I did have family members, so most importantly, my parents, they gave myself and my brothers agency to stand up for ourselves. Because especially being for me, the first elementary school that I went to, I was the only Black kid until my middle brother started 2 years after me. So I was always the only one either in the room or the only one in my grade. And sometimes I had to, like roll up my sleeves and get into a little scuffles. But my parents, they did give me the agency to stand up for myself and for my brothers. Because I know for some of my other friends, they were kind of given the guidance of like, just keep your head down and, like just try to stay out of trouble. But I'm glad that I had the agency to be able to stand up for myself. And the other thing that I found to be helpful is that the second neighborhood that I grew up in, so from the age of 8 and onwards, the majority of my friends, I would say actually all my friends, they're kids of immigrants as well. Even though they weren't Black, there was still some sort of like cultural connection in regards to maneuvering between the two identities. So that was really helpful. And in regards to me understanding my roots, I don't think I really understood my Blackness or understood my Jamaicanness until really until you, Grandma, and Uncle Devon came to Canada. Um, because prior to you immigrating to Canada, it was just my parents and my middle brother. And having you, Grandma, and Uncle Devon come, I think that's when I really started to understand, oh, like my parents, they're not from here. They came from another place. And that's when I really felt that I got exposure to the foods, especially from Grandma's cooking, which like I learned so much through the foods. And a lot of the times, any kind of school projects, that's when I started to focus on my Jamaican roots and Jamaican heritage. I don't know if you remember this, Auntie, but when I was in Brownies, we had to do, it was an international showcase of the different brownies across the world. And I ended up getting Jamaica. And you helped me with that project. I don't know if you remember this. You helped me with the project, so we were able to figure out what the different uniforms were worn for brownies in Jamaica, their dance, the different songs that they sang, and I presented
That's
that
ringing a bell. I gotta admit, that's ringing a bell now
right.
because I have a brownie as well in Jamaica. Did I share that with you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a brownie to a brief period because, Auntie just doesn't follow a lot of rules, but
Oh, I love
But
that.
yeah, so that's where I would really say when my roots started to, when I really discovered my roots or understood where my roots came from. And from there, mom and dad putting me in ACAM, so getting in touch with the cultural dances and starting to really embrace and interact with children who look like me. Because going to elementary school, we were one of 2 or 3 Black families, so didn't have that exposure. So, participating within ACAM, I was able to see people who look like me and understood what I was going through.
that's so powerful. If I may, just for our community, ACAM is the acronym for the African Caribbean Association of Manitoba. And and it's one of the first cultural organizations that was formed here in Winnipeg. It's well over 60 odd years old and is still going. We are still involved with ACAM doing a lot of work in the community. And it's been quoted and cited as this place, as you said there, Simone, that's helped a lot of Canadian-born folks to get themselves centered and really grounded in their roots. And so I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Thank you for that. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I was resonating with a lot of that because me, myself, I'm also a Canadian born. And so it really resonated with me when you mentioned the duality of your identity and having to make it make sense at home with their culture, having to be someone else at school. And so I just wanted to really like hone in on that and like how that discovery influenced your everyday life now.
I guess you can say it's a form of code switching now-ish, in the sense that, you know, I do own my dual identity and understand that now I am in a place where I am my full authentic self within the workplace. But before, I wouldn't necessarily. I would be my Canadian Jamaican self outside of the workplace, and I would be my quote unquote Canadian quote unquote professional self within the workplace. And I just got to a point probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago. So definitely before 2020. But I got to a place where I'm like, you know what, it's exhausting to be able to have to switch on and off. And if people can't accept me for who I am, the way that I look, the way that I wear my hair, the way that I speak, then the boss, the workplace, whatever environment that I'm in, it's not the right place for me if they can't accept me for who I am.
It's crazy because to be completely transparent, I'm the only Black woman at my organization currently, and I relate to you in the sense that I've only been the Black woman in the majority of the classes that I took as well. So having this conversation and answering that certain question is going to really open people's eyes to the fact that it's just so deeply embedded in us, and I don't think people understand that it prevents us from not only being who we are truly, but it prevents us from excelling and doing exceptional at what we do. It's a hindrance. And it's so crucial that people hear that answer and really absorb it and take a pause and listen to that answer, because it suppresses and oppresses personalities and identities. So huge. But as far as talking about the way that you wear your hair, the way that you dress and all of that, let's focus on the hair, okay? Because when Phyllis told me about parting the roots, I was like, why, how did I know about this? Because I went natural 4 years ago. I shaved my head completely bald. And so this hair that I have now, I slicked it back, but it's big. Phyllis will tell you, it's out here.
A good size.
So, yeah, it's a good size. You know what? Could I even get into the fact of why I've shaved my head? I think this is also a good conversation.
Absolutely. And I'm going to applaud you because I'll share my transition story, which did not involve shaving of my hair. So,
okay,
I'm applauding you.
We're going to get into this because it's in alignment with what we're talking about. So I went to a hair salon as a Black woman. And in Winnipeg, there are not a lot of Black salons, at least Black salons that really have studied Black hair and really understand Black hair. I go to the salon and I want my hair straightened, of course, because I'm not comfortable with my hair at that age. And I want my hair straightened. I want white girl hair. Okay. And so she does that. She's straightening my hair. And because my hair is like 4A texture, even when it's straightened, it still is very dense, right? Obviously, it's not going to have the movement that I'm looking for. And so her not understanding that that's just how it is, she took some thinning scissors, and she thinned out the entire back section of my hair because the what's it called? The crown of the head, it's much denser than the circumference.
Yeah.
And so she went and just added with the thinning scissors at the crown of my head. And so obviously it looked great and I was happy, but when I washed my hair, it shrunk. And so the crown was a wreck. And so anyways, I tried to deal with that for majority of my adolescence and it just wasn't working. So I went bald. And that was a consequence of just not having the resources as a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
where I live. And so that's a perfect segue into parting the roots. So if you can tell us about parting the roots, because it's
Mm-hmm.
with our hair, and if you can explain what it's about and what even motivated you to create that to begin with.
Mm-hmm. So I'll share a little bit of my hair journey, which will then like get into the creation of Pardon the Roots. So
Yeah.
again, growing up in Winnipeg, went to school, grade school, see no one that looked like me. And also to the females in my family, they relaxed or chemically straightened their hair. So I wanted straight hair. So I begged and begged my mother to straighten my hair. And finally, at the age of 9, she did. And I relaxed, got my hair relaxed up until the age of 22. I'm lucky in the sense that like my hair journey was a positive one because my mom didn't send me to the hair salon. She did my hair. So I didn't deal with any issues of burning, hair loss, the cuts that you mentioned. So I had a pretty positive hair experience. And it wasn't until when I came to Toronto, this was in the summer of 2020 or 2022, 2002. So, 22 years ago.
Huh?
So came to Toronto for Caravana, went to the parade, and I saw a Black woman with an afro. And I was in awe of this afro. And I also said to myself, wow, she's brave to be wearing her natural hair. Now, for me to be seeing a woman who is wearing her hair in its natural state, for me to say that you're brave to like show up as your authentic self, that says a lot in regards to the conditioning that, you know, has been stroked across all of us and trying to adhere to European beauty standards.
Yep.
But I was in awe of the beauty of her hair because at the time I had not remembered what my own natural hair looked like. And when I got back to Winnipeg, I said to my family and friends that I was going to start growing my hair out natural. Didn't really get a lot of positive feedback, but I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I had my lax relaxer, I believe it was September of 2002. And then from there, I didn't do the big chop because, again, this is the early 2000s. Wearing your hair natural is not a thing. And then for you to shave your hair or have a teeny weeny afro was not a thing. So I did not feel comfortable doing the big chop. So I just did the transition. So I wore braids for a year until there was enough length for me to chop off the relaxer and then to sport my fro. So that was the journey that I took to become a natural. So yeah, I've been natural for half my life, I can say. So I felt more comfortable becoming a natural when I moved to Toronto because I had that anonymity. No one knew me because I felt that if I did that journey in Winnipeg, that I'd be given looks and, you know, ridiculed and people wouldn't embrace my decision. So I said, let me do this in a new city where no one knows me, not going to get feedback or anything like that. And it was an interesting journey because I was getting into the corporate world, and not only was I dealing with hair discrimination within the corporate world and with white individuals, I was dealing with hair discrimination within my own community. Yeah, I would have Black folks tell me that my natural hair was not professional, that I wouldn't get jobs. I remember one networking event that I went to. It's called First Fridays here in Toronto, where Black professionals, they get together on a Friday evening. And I was talking to this Black man, and at the time I had my hair just out in a fro, and then he addressed me as Afro Puff. He said, listen, Afro Puff, don't think that you're going to find a job with your hair looking like that. Yeah.
Toronto.
So hearing the feedback from people within my own community and then also, you know, people outside of the community, it did impact my self-confidence. But I said, you know what, I'm still going to stick to keeping my hair natural because it's healthier. It's cheaper, and I just want to embrace myself. It was also a little bit of me resisting. I'm a Taurus. I'm stubborn. I don't like being told what to do. So it was just for me to, it was for me to resist and really embrace my authentic self. And this is how my organization, Parting the Roots, came about. So it's all of the different hair experiences that I had within society, within the workplace. So as I mentioned, I've had Black people let me know that my hair wasn't professional. At this one company, a director told me that my box braids weren't professional. And not only my only experience, friends have shared with me things that they've gone through or their family members have gone through, such as a friend of mine, his brother was told if he wanted to be considered for a job promotion, he would have to shave his locks off. So all of these stories kind of like led up into the creation to Parting the Roots, but it was one specific situation that made me stop and say, I need to do something. So I was part of a diversity, equity, inclusion training session at a previous company that I was working at. And a facilitator came in, a DEI facilitator came in to discuss covering. So covering in the sense people not bringing their whole self within the workplace. So not sharing their sexual orientation, their religious beliefs, etc.
Yeah.
There's different aspects of covering. One of them is appearance. So the example that the individual used was a Black woman straightening her hair to hide her appearance, which there is some validity to what she said, but she didn't provide any context. In the sense that after slavery, Black people, we had to find a way to compete in a world that wasn't created for us or by us. And we had to do that by altering our appearance, lightening our skin, straightening our hair. And there was another, a friend of mine, a colleague who was sitting beside me, a Black woman. And when the facilitator made that statement, I didn't even have to turn to look over to my friend. I saw her reaction through my peripheral vision, and we're like, yeah, no, this is not going to go down. So after the facilitation, my colleague and I were talking to our non-Black colleagues, and one of the colleagues said to us, well, Black women appropriate white hairstyles by wearing straight wigs and weaves. And this is where I was like, you know, the misinformation that was shared within that facilitation actually did more harm than good.
Yeah.
And my friend, she ended up writing an email to the facilitator and, you know, thanked her for coming, but said that she was offended by some of the statements that she made regarding Black women and our hair, and stated a few facts about our hair. And the facilitator did respond back and said that she did do her research, and here a catch is the research. It's from Deloitte. So my friend and I, we read the research, and sure enough, there was context. So it did start off by saying that after slavery, Black people had to find a way to compete. And one of the ways was to alter their appearance.
Yeah.
So I came home, complained to my partner, as I usually do if something at work happens. And I don't know if it was him being frustrated with me continuously complaining, or maybe he saw potential in something.
Yeah.
So when I explained to him what happened, his response to me was, well, do something about it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do something about it, Everton. And that's how Parting the Roots came about. So this was in the fall of 2016. And what I started doing was just research, because as a descendant of the transatlantic slave trade, so as you know, my family were from Jamaica, but we don't necessarily know specifically where our ancestors came from. Yes, from West Africa, but don't really know the tribes. So we don't know the traditions, the routines, the rituals, or anything like that. So when I started to do my hair research, I was learning so many things in regards to understanding like what the different hairstyles signified. I didn't even know that the hairstyles symbolized anything. Didn't understand the different traditions or routines, like naming ceremonies. Certain tribes, they will, you know, cut off a lock of a baby's hair and a mother's hair and give it to the ancestors as an offering. I didn't know any of this stuff. So as I started to do my research, I said, you know what, let me share this on my social media. So it was February of 2017 for Black History Month. Each day I posted a Black hair history fact and incorporated some of my personal stories, incorporated some of my family and friends' stories as well. And I got a lot of great feedback from those 28 posts where I said, you know what, I'm going to continue along with this journey of educating people about the history, the significance, and the politics associated with our hair. And from there, I did a hair exhibit in 2019, doing a chronological history of Black hair and including myself within the exhibit, replicating prominent individuals within the Black community around our hair. And COVID hit, so I wasn't able to do an exhibit, but what I did was I brought the exhibit virtually, and which is what I'm doing now. I conduct workshops. So I conduct workshops for schools, for organizations, and the foster care system. And especially when it comes to the foster care system, it's so important because Black and Indigenous children, they over-index within the system. So a lot of them, they are in households with people who aren't from the same culture, ethnicity, race as them. So there is that lack of education in regards to food, hair, customs, the management of the maintenance of skin. So the few foster care systems that I've worked here with in Ontario, they really valued what I was able to provide to them for both their workers as well as the foster parents. So that is where I'm at with Parting the Roots. Last year, though, I did launch my first product called Messages from Nana, which is a 52 card deck of Black hair affirmations. Thank you, Auntie.
Yes.
So, would you like for me to share how this was inspired?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, we were about to lead into that.
Absolutely. There's so many things that you said there, Simone, in your own hair journey and the forming of Parting the Roots that really need to be unpacked. But I really think that Messages from Nana is probably a nice way to tie it all together. But I'm going to let you just, tell us about Messages from Nana and how it all connects to, to Parting the Roots. And
for sure. So Messages from Nana, I got the inspiration in June of 2022. And what I ended up doing was I conducted a workshop with the Toronto Catholic School Board. So they organized a day for Black female students. So they had two events, one for Black male students and one for Black female students. And this full day workshop included seminars on mental health, financial literacy. They included me as a part of this one-day workshop for the Black female students specifically. So I was hired to present and work with the students for an hour. I ended up staying an additional 30 minutes with them. And with that extra 30 minutes, it was the students sharing with me their hair traumas, their hair stories, asking me questions, how to maneuver certain situations. One student asked me the question, like, how do I deal with my ballet teacher who is telling me that I need to wear my hair in a certain style, but physically my hair can't be in that shape or style. Other students sharing with me that kids are like sticking papers or pens in her hair, or people sharing, well, you look better with your hair straight versus curly. So I sat down and, took that additional 30 minutes with the students and spoke to them and, just gave them words of encouragement and advice in regards to how to maneuver you dealing with school, with teachers regarding your hair.
Yeah.
And after that session, I sat down and I thought to myself, a lot of the things that they were saying to me was the same stuff that I was dealing with 30 years ago. And I said to myself, what is it that I would have wanted, or what is it that I can create for these students currently? Like, what is there something tangible that I can use to help uplift them, help empower them, and really promote that sense of self-love around their hair? And that's how Messages from Nana came about. I am someone who uses oracle cards, tarot cards, affirmation cards, just as something just to, provide that sense of affirmation, just knowing that I'm on the right track. And I figured that creating something like this for Black hair specifically could be something that could be used as that sense of empowerment. Could also be used as an educational tool for parents, especially parents who are fostering Black children or parents who are in a biracial family and not necessarily have the same type of hair as their biracial child. So what I did that summer was I just sat down and started to free write. So it was a lot of rebuttals to things that has happened to me or things that has happened to friends and family, that I wrote a rebuttal, but did it in a way to inspire people. So I did that for the summer of 2022. And then I got an editor to help add some sauce to the affirmations, hired a graphic designer, made sure everyone that I worked with were Black people so they could understand what I was trying to convey with these cards, because these cards were definitely created with care and intention.
Absolutely.
And I launched a Kickstarter to help with the printing costs last February, and I was able to hit my goal and got them printed and started to distribute them globally. So from the Kickstarter, I was able to get orders from Spain, Germany, all over the US, all over Canada, all the way up to Northwest Territories. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that is so.
So yeah, so I was able to accomplish that. And yeah, currently I do have them listed within a few boutiques here in Toronto. People can get them online, but really
Mhm.
these cards were a way to, you know, give that sense of empowerment to the 9-year-old Simone who was begging her mother to straighten her hair.
Yeah.
um, to help with those students that I worked with back in 2022. And these cards, they're not just meant for children. Anyone can use them at any age, because a lot of the people in my circle, they still deal with a lot of complicated relationships when it comes to their hair. So any kind of like words of, encouragement, um, promoting that sense of like self-love and upliftment, these are the purpose of why I created these cards.
That
Powerful,
so
perfect.
beautiful.
I am grinning from ear to ear as any auntie who absolutely loves and adores their niece would
Yeah.
do. And Simone knows just that, 100% behind her from the day we met, right? We know that.
Yes.
I'm very mindful, though, that I'm really glad actually that you mentioned that these cards are not just for younger people, they're for everyone, and they're not just for Black people or people of African descent. They
Mhm.
are for those foster parents, as you mentioned, because all of us have been told stories, we've been lied to. And one of the reasons why a ballet teacher would say your hair to a little Black girl or a little African descent girl, your hair would look a certain way. And that's because of the lies that's been told to that ballet teacher. And so
Mhm.
Yeah.
show up
Yeah.
in this world and we do what we know.
Mm.
Now, this is very educational, these cards, and I'm actually holding this one up, and at the back it says crown. And we know that, the brain, the mind, everything. There's a saying in the Jesuit, I believe, faith, that you give us a child before the age of, I believe, 7, between 5 and 7, and we'll show you the man. And when you peel away the layers of that onion from that statement, it
Mhm.
means they're taking control of the crown, the thing that.
Mm.
Mm.
And your work, Simone, and folks like yourself, what we're doing here at Pause, we want to make sure that what is holding the brain, that the crown is holding the brain, is that we actually start cultivating these healthier practices.
Mhm.
It starts with what we think and how we think, but we often cannot do it on our own. And it's one of many reasons why I said, for Black History Month, it has to be you really speaking about your work, your journey, because it's a journey that started from within, head, heart, soul. And these were, as you said, created, curated with care, attention, intention, and deliberateness. So this one here, it actually says, share something special about your hair and spark a conversation that will uplift. That is a powerful statement for any person who has hair that's of African descent. And it doesn't matter if it's mixed with European or Asian, we still have our hair. And those,
Mhm.
right? So I can't thank you enough for this work that you're doing, right? We just feel it up a lot. And I just want to
Thank you.
move forward and just ask you, maybe I know you well enough, but help our community to understand, really what else are you embarking upon, if anything, what are some of the other endeavors and projects that you might be contemplating or already have in place?
Good question. So this is something that I am still figuring out myself. Definitely, I do want to spend more time to focus on parting the roots, especially on a national level, because I do feel that I'm somewhat established within the Greater Toronto area, but I definitely do want to expand out to share the message around parting the roots and potentially collaborating with community groups as well, because a lot of the information that we have and the data that we have is US based. So Canada doesn't do a good job of race-based collection data, number one.
Yeah.
But with a lot of the hair stats that we have, it's based on the US. So that's a lot of the information that I share with my workshops. And it's something that I want to work on in the future in Canada. So how can we start collecting Canadian-based data around Afro-textured hair? So that's something that I am working on. I've reached out to a few individuals because I think it is very important to understand this information, especially when it comes to hiring practices, treatment of African descent individuals within the workplace, within the school system, and beyond. So I think it's what I'm really focused on is like trying to get like more Canadian-based data and working on collaborations with individuals to continuously spread the word.
Fantastic.
That is absolutely fantastic. I'm gonna let you come in here, Ayamara. I just want to squeeze in and say this platform pause is a start to really getting that data, because we're reaching just a diverse group of folks, many of whom are folks who are also of African descent and or very much a lot of close affiliation. So it's just one other way, but the message has been put out that we need the data, and Ayamara, we have those questions that we ask, right? So maybe that's one way in which we can also start collecting some of the information. So let's move into rapid fire. Ayamara.
Absolutely. Let's do that. This is the best part.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, maybe not the best part, but it's a highlight. It's a highlight. I knew Phyllis was going to say something. Okay, so rapid fire. I'm sure you're familiar with it. I'm just going to shoot some questions at you, and whatever comes to the top of your mind, spit it out. Okay. All right. First, what is your favorite thing about the community that you're a part of?
Toronto community or Winnipeg community?
You tell us. We are not going to define it. You define it first.
Yeah.
What do I love about the community that I'm part of? Well, okay, I'll share my Toronto community. I appreciate the sense of diversity within my community and the support that I receive from my community, and the ability for us to have honest and transparent conversations. That's what I would say about my Toronto community. My Winnipeg community, I would say the same thing as well, but Winnipeg is home. So I just feel very grounded and relaxed when I'm home. It's just a sense of familiarity for me.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why? This is a heavy question.
Oh my goodness. So, like deceased or anyone?
No
You
rules.
make that definition, no rules, no rules.
Who would I want to have dinner with? Honestly, the person who I would want to have dinner with is one of my great grandparents. Yes, I
That's
want to know more about my history.
Absolutely. So
Mhm.
powerful.
So quickly, this is not part of our rapid fire because we're not in it, but I mean, I own pause, so I get to do what I really want to do. So, Ayamara, who would you choose to have dinner with and why? And then I'll share mine because actually mine is similar.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. Okay, there's one came immediately to my mind, and this might shock people, I don't know, but it would have to be Jesus.
Okay, okay.
I would have to have dinner with Jesus.
And for me, that historical figure, and he's not historical globally or anything, but for me, he's historical, and that would be my father. So your grandfather on your mother's side, because he's someone who we didn't get a chance to know, left my life when I was just about 3 years old. So I would love to sit at his feet and, like you, learn more about our history and his side of the family tree. So we veered a little bit there, but yeah, I love this question. Well, beach or mountains? I'll continue on then. Beach or mountains? Which one?
Beach or mountains? Beach. I love the salt water. It's so healing.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Hi, Mario, want to finish?
Okay, last one. Share a surprising fact about yourself that people might not know. How about as it relates to maybe Black History Month?
Black History Month, an interesting fact.
Surprising fact about yourself that you may not know. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do a plug for Black History Month. I'm currently in the CBC docuseries called For the Culture by Amanda Paris. So there's 6 episodes, so you have to watch all 6 to see where I'm at.
Wow,
And she's been heavily
what a
promoting.
way to end it. What a way to end it.
So
Self-promo, yeah.
Wrap this amazing chat with Simone up, and there are 2 things, well, primarily 2 options that we'd like to leave our guests with. And would you like to focus on some sort of a change, right? Whether it's an organization, a project, or an individual in your community that's really actively contributing to positive change? Or would you like to exchange a story with us, something that's a personal story or a community-based story? I think we're seeing the answer, but which of the 2 would you like to share? And
Yeah, the second one.
Okay, so a story exchange.
Yeah, story exchange. So this story exchange is how I found my voice. So as I mentioned, I've been in the corporate world for pretty much 20 years, 20 plus years. And I will say that it took me up until about 2017, 2018-ish until I actually felt comfortable using my voice, especially within the workplace. And it was a combination of things. The boss that I had at the time, a woman of color, she's from Colombia. She gave me agency to use my voice to be my authentic self within the workplace. So it was a combination of having her and her guidance and support, but it was one particular situation that really just made me own my voice. So the company that I was working at the time, I was invited by a VP and a director to go in to present to one of our customers. And we went to the customer's office, and the customer greeted us. So the customer that we're presenting to, it was their equivalent to their VP and director.
Okay.
So get into their office, and my VP and director greeted the customer VP and director, and it took them maybe about 2 minutes before my VP and director introduced me to the customer. And it was it was like an afterthought of how they introduced me. So how they introduced me was, oh, this is Simone. That was it.
Yeah.
So we get into the meeting room,
Mhm.
and my VP started off the presentation and then passed it over to my director. And when it came to my turn to present, I said to myself, I'm going to take this opportunity to reintroduce myself, because I am not letting these two men ignore me, dismiss me the way that they did.
Yeah.
So when it came to my turn to present, I said, I just want to take the time to reintroduce myself. My name is Simone. I am the Shopper Insights Manager for X company. And this is how I contributed to this presentation. And this is what I'm going to walk you through.
Mm.
Did my portion of the presentation, passed it over to my VP. He ended it off and said to the VP of the customer, so when can we expect for you to sign this contract? So she, the customer VP, the VP was a woman. She said, let us take this, we'll review it, and we'll get back to you. So she, the VP, the customer VP, turns to me and said, so Simone, like, how long have you been at X company? So I said, I've been there for X amount of years. I started off in this position, now I'm in this position. The minute that I just paused, my VP, he cuts right in and asks the question again. So when do you think you'll be able to go through the contract and sign it? So the customer VP, she simply said, we'll go through it and we'll let you know once we've done that. So at that point, the meeting was done. So she, the customer, she started to get up and started to lead us out of the meeting room. And then she stopped and she turned around and she looked at me. So it was myself and her, the only two women, and then the three men in the room. She stopped and she looked at me and she said, Simone, make sure you continue to use your voice, because I still have to use my voice within these four walls within this X company. And I'm just paraphrasing what she was saying, but she was saying, you need to stand up for yourself. You need to, own it, and don't let anyone silence you. So she said this in front of my VP and my director, who, I don't know if they had a look of shame on their face or just oblivious to what was happening.
Yeah.
But that was a life and a career defining moment for me. So when I got back home, I sent her an email and thanked her for what she did. And she simply responded back, we gotta stand up for each other.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing. Thank you so much.
Powerful.
Whew.
Incredible story.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that's just what it takes. That is why pause is so important, because that's what that VP customer did.
Yeah.
They could have continued on and follow the, a professional or the expected, all business, da, 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 da. But what they did, they paused and they actually got a chance to see the person, Simone, amidst the noise and the kerfuffle and so on of what those other folks brought. She paused, she saw the person, Simone. She asked some questions. And what I heard in that story, Simone, she underlined her interaction with you with some core values, human, right?
Yeah.
Like absolutely validating who you are as this fellow human. And then that support. Powerful, powerful. I can't thank you enough for this journey that you've taken us on. I never tire of hearing my nieces, her stories, the journey, the projects, like never. When we get on the phone, we're talking hours, right? And so this is just a little bit of a nugget that we're very pleased and proud to share with you, our community. And again, just really inviting you to whatever it is that resonated with you that Simone shared. Would love to hear from you, whether it's pinging us, writing, whatever it is, just reach out to us. Aymara, I'm going to turn it over to you, do the wrap, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Simone, for your time. You are fantastic. It was a pleasant experience meeting you, and I hope that, I actually hope we keep in touch and we do form
Sure.
community.
Well, I come home often enough, so yes,
Yeah.
we can
Yeah, and
definitely connect.
even virtually, just to maintain this community beyond
Mhm.
pausing.
Well, thank you for the opportunity for me to share my story, and also too for the amazing work that you're both doing, because it's so important for us to share our stories and experiences so that the things that has happened to us doesn't happen to future generations.
And that's what
Oof.
education,
Yes.
we're going, but the bottom line, we all know why at the core we're doing what we do, and we take different paths to get us to fulfilling this purpose, this calling.
Mhm.
Blessed with words. I've been blessed with being able to stand in front of groups, and I know that it's a tool that's been given to me. And so, coming from a history of where our ancestors, they told stories. We didn't write anything down. It's why European colonizers came and said, "Oh, there's nothing here. There was nothing. It was like blank." But we had our stories, and we still do have those stories. They're embedded within DNA. And
Yeah.
so we carry them. And what we're doing is awakening them through this process of pausing long enough to check in. Who am I in this world? How do I want to show up in this world as my real true self? And what's my story, and how would I use that story to help really lay that path for others so that they too can use their voice, as you said, their story, and find their own self. So thank you.
Thank you for this.